ghouls, ghosts, goblins, government tax audits. All of these things scare the shit out of me. More so, the tax audit. I'm just saying. This is simply horrifying. This month, we take a look at
Tales from the Crypt.
Hey, how's everybody doing? This is Matt, and this is a new segment from Simplistic Reviews. It's going to be a new monthly segment, or at least for the month of October, called Simply Horrifying. And as you can see here, this is what we'll be covering for the month of October in Simply Horrifying. It is the fantastic series from the late 80s and early to mid 90s that was on HBO on Sunday nights. Tales from the Crypt from the EC Comics, or derived from the EC Comics from the 1950s. Tales from the Crypt, Vault of Horror, Suspense Shock Stories, Two-Fisted Tales, everything under the EC label, basically from William Gaines. Now, a lot of people, when they were growing up, they were fans of Transformers or Batman the Animated Series or He-Man or any other thing or licensed product from the 80s, if you will. I grew up, funny enough and twisted enough, watching Tales from the Crypt as a kid. I was lucky enough to have HBO. Thanks, Mom and Dad. And this is what I grew up with from the time I was 6 years old, from 1989 all the way until the series ended in 95. It was Tales from the Crypt for me. Something just drew me to it. As a kid, I didn't read a lot of the bigger comics. I read EC comics. And that might be weird for a kid or a guy my age. I mean, I'm only 29, born in 83. So people were like, you should be reading Batman and Superman and all these other X-Men. It's like, nah, I read EC, man. And to be honest with you, I love this stuff. This was the renaissance of me loving horror, was from Tales from the Crypt, funny enough. So enough of the history lesson. Basically, how this month will go from October 1st being today, going forward, I will be reviewing or talking about 27, funny number, 27 different episodes of Tales from the Crypt. Now, these aren't ranked from best to worst. They are basically just going to be told from season 1 all the way up to season 7. And no, I mean, I love them all. Some of them are better than others, but I'm not going to rank them all. I'm just going to give you 27 of my personal favorite episodes in 27 different videos throughout the course of October. So, episode 1 is from season 1, 1989, and it is entitled "And All Through the House." Now, this episode is about a woman who kills her husband on Christmas Eve for an insurance scam, of course, because everything about Tales from Crypt was always bad people having bad things happen to them at the end. So it was a total moral fiber story for the most part. Crappy people have crappy stuff done to them, and it was great. And I don't know why politicians had problems with these comics in the 50s, because, yeah, as bloody as they were, they told about bad guys having bad shit happen to them. So it was win-win for everybody. I digress. So, in All Through the House, you have a woman, like I said, killing her husband for an insurance scam. And, coincidentally enough, on Christmas Eve, you have a psychopath who has just murdered about 3 or 4 women, dressed in a Santa costume, is running loose in the city. And, of course, coincidentally enough, Santa shows up at this woman's house, attacks her, gets knocked out, and the woman has a brilliant plan to use this to her advantage and act like the psycho Santa killed her husband as opposed to her. So, needless to say, most of the stories go without saying, at the end she gets hers. The end. Now, this first episode, this was actually, if you're going by the DVD, the box set, this was the second episode of the 6 from the first season. Directed by Robert Zemeckis, funny enough. Back to the Future, Forrest Gump, some of the best movies ever made, was the director on this. And he was also executive producer throughout the entire series, as well as Richard Donner, who you might know from Lethal Weapon, Walter Hill, who you might know from The Warriors, Joel Silver, super producer of the 80s, Die Hard, Lethal Weapon, Predator, The Matrix for later on down the line. This guy's done it all. And then there was a fifth guy. There were 5 main executive producers, but those were the big 4 right there. So that's the first episode in the series right there, and All Through the House. Check it out. It was also written by Fred Decker, who you might know as the director for Monster Squad, one of my personal favorite movies from the 80s as well. It's like Goonies with monsters, basically. A couple cool little things in this episode. Like I said before, Robert Zemeckis directed it. It also starred Mary Ellen Trainor, who was an actress in the Lethal Weapon movies. She was the psychologist, the police psychologist in Lethal Weapon 1 and 2, you see her. And another funny little thing you notice in Lethal Weapon 2 is that this episode is actually is being played on a TV. If you watch close enough on Lethal Weapon 2, you'll see this episode in the Murtaugh household. So cute little Easter eggs that shows a very, everything was very wrapped into it, because Richard Donner also directed Lethal Weapon, executive produced Tales from the Crypt. So very cool stuff. So this is episode 1 of Simply Horrifying from Simplistic Reviews. And I will see you guys in the next episode, where I'll talk about another one of my favorite episodes. So, good night, boys and ghouls.
Thanks for watching Simply Horrifying. Quick tip. Candy corn is not an appropriate Halloween candy. Don't be the douche that gives out candy corn. Any candy that has the same consistency of a 9mm bullet is not candy.